Bibi Netanyahu on
I know.
on with Dr. Phil to respond to I don't know what this is about.
I guess Dr. Phil went to Israel.
I guess that's it.
Dr. Phil goes to Israel.
And I mean, did he do this line in other places, Netanyahu, or because this is quoted in the Times? I guess that makes sense. I mean, Dr. Phil's big. But here is Bibi Netanyahu with Dr. Phil responding to the announcement by Biden that he's going to condition some of the offensive military weapons.
But we will do what we have to do to protect our country, and that means protect our future. And that means we will defeat Hamas, including in Rafah. We have no other choice.
Well, these leaders that you're talking to that behind the scenes agree, but do they agree that Hamas has to be stopped now and completely 100% eradicated?
Some of them do, yes.
Some don't?
Well, some of them openly say that when they talk to, they don't openly say that in the public sphere, but they openly say it to us. They say, if you don't destroy Hamas, that means that the Iranian Axis will have a victory and we're next. And in many ways, all our free societies are next. Because if Israel is pushed not to destroy Hamas because of this tactic of using...
First off, it's interesting to hear the domino theory being revived again. Now, just it's not communist. It's, I guess, Palestinian nationalists.
Islamists. It's terrorists. It's a fight between the civilized world and the world of darkness, as they've invoked before.
I mean, the idea that, we know the reporting says that Iran was not made aware, was not involved in the planning of this. So it's very, very convenient to make this a broader conflict between Iran, I guess, and the Western allies or whatever it is that he wants to make it about. But the real question that Dr. Phil should ask and won't ask is it possible for you to do what you're saying you're doing? Like, do experts, military leaders, the Secretary of Defense of the United States, let's say, do they think it's possible you can do what you're doing? That's the real question.
We know we know the answer, right?
We know the answer, and it's not.
There has not been any credible military expert who has said they can eradicate Hamas.
Because if Israel is pushed not to destroy Hamas because of this tactic of using human shields or other considerations, then every democracy will be imperiled. So, I've said we'll fight if necessary. I've said we'll fight with our fingernails. I assure you, Dr. Phil, we have more than fingernails.
Okay, hold on one sec.
Victorious.
We will be victorious. We get it. We have more than fingernails. We're very strong. We're very strong. Yeah, just notice, I think, so we played a clip yesterday of Netanyahu, who's now calling the opposition genocidal. And you could see this is how right-wingers often do things. Like when a word starts to get more into the public education, they thwart it and muddy it, right? And make it about themselves. But when he talks democracy, they're doing that too, right? It's this, Iran votes, right? In Iran, they vote, but they're a religious theocracy, and in Israel is pretty theocratic as well. If we're going, but you'd never hear in the Western press like Iran is a democracy in the Middle East, right? Or anything.
There's broader repression in Iran.
I know, but of their citizenry, and in Israel, it's just the 3 million people they militarily occupy in the West Bank and the 2 million in the open air prison in Gaza. So
exactly,
I'm only drawing that comparison to just say, even though of course Iran is incredibly repressive, you would never hear that claim made ever in the Western press, because democracy in the way that Netanyahu continues and the right wingers in Israel and also Biden presented to the public is like, Western cosmopolitanism and like general educated, wealthy, aligned with the United States and with whiteness and all of that, with an element of voting in it. So in my opinion, he's doing this work to reimagine and propagandistic work to make democracy about whiteness and like wealth versus the savages who are uninterested in democratic representation, and they are motivated by this ancient desire, as Biden invoked earlier this week, to kill Jews. It makes them seem primitive, and Israel and the rest of the West, they're coming for you too, other democracies. It makes them, seem like this is about our broader way of life. And that's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And the fact is that, like, the reason why there was a Balfour mandate was, in fact, to sort of like inject or have a beachhead for, at that time, the British Empire, and, to be an extension of those Western powers. They weren't, maybe you could say democracies, but an empire is not necessarily that democratic,
right?
An institution, but of these Western powers. I mean, that's really what he's saying. And democracy, you're right. I mean, it's a cheapened word that is used to signify, like, we're part of a club, and and certainly, people forget this, but Bibi stepped back from some of the provisions that they were using in the that were protested by only half the population, but that's a lot of people to protest in Israel, that had to do with those Israelis who and those who are under Israeli control, who are allowed to have a civic life. Essentially, there was going to be an inhibition of that, the context of that civic life, with the disempowerment of the Supreme Court. So it's tenuous at best.
And the money quote, though, or not even money quote, the funny quote there is that, I assure you, Dr. Phil, we have more than fingernails. And how he has to go to Dr. Phil for this. Yeah, I dropped that.
Matt has to pull that as a drop.
I know.
Make sure that he's back in for that.
Yeah.
But they, look, they at this point, I'm sure they have more than fingernails. But the main thing, at least from a domestic standpoint in this country, is that we stop providing them with anything going further. This is something that should have happened 6 months ago, 7 months ago. There should have been this conditioning with the attempt of saving tens of thousands of lives. But going forward, at the very least, they have what they have, but they should have no more. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of wiggle room for Biden, but at the very least, Brian Grimm reports, at least it's scaring some of the right people anyways. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.